Welcome to Impact the World, the show for and about creatives, changemakers, and entrepreneurs. This is a conversation episode where a special guest shares with me what they are creating and the behind-the-scenes journey of their experience. Welcome to Impact the World, and my guest for this show is none other than Marc Allen. Marc is the founder and head of New World Library, one of the most beloved spirituality publishers out there, and I'm proud to say also the publisher of my book. It was a real delight to speak to Marc, as you'll learn in the conversation, because many years ago I saw him on an interview and he really struck me, just something about the uniqueness of his being and the love I felt in Marc and his dedication to his work, and also his slightly creative, rebellious way of working really appealed to me. So to have this conversation with him was just a delight, and he shared some really wonderful things about living, about creating, about building something that can hold many people and many voices. So I know it will resonate with many of you. For those of you who enjoy our show, if you want to support us, we are an independent show, so it would mean the world to us if you would leave us a rating or a review or subscribe over on Apple Podcasts. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a notification whenever there is a new episode out. Enjoy this episode. Marc, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here on Impact the World. Thanks for saying yes.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to see you again, Lee. Always.
Yeah, you too. And you know, there's a story I wanted to begin our conversation with, which I don't know if I've ever told you this, because I think we met in person in 2014, or maybe, it was about 2014, the first time I met you. And you were a significant person for me as way back as 2008, 2009, so 12 years ago. And I remember you did an interview with Lilu Mace, who at the time was doing a lot of interviews on YouTube, and they were very popular, and I saw your name come up. So I remember just pressing play one day, and there were a couple of things that really struck me about who you were in the world. Number one, I remember you saying that you don't work on Mondays, that you had realized you needed Monday for yourself and that this was just your day, and that was kind of a rule. And it was the first idea of, oh yeah, if you're creating your own schedule and you recognize you need some creative time or some you time, you can build that in. But I think at the time, if I cast my mind back to those years, I was about 5 years into my work with spirituality, with channeling. And I remember at the time I was about to self-publish a book, and in my head, wouldn't it be great if Hay House or somebody would, take this book? So I remember learning about New World Library and then realizing I knew so many of your books, and I just thought you had such a present, and it's an overused word, but humble or non-egoic energy that really appealed to me. But also that you were a musician and an author, and you were running this publishing company. For sure, a little spark went off in my mind around what was possible. And it was like, oh, that's really cool. He's still a creative. He's running a company and enjoying running a company and working with people, which I knew I would. And he's also being a teacher and an author in the world. I'd just not really seen that in your way before. And so thank you all those years ago for, unbeknownst to you, being a little spark for me of what was possible and what I now find myself living.
Wonderful. I always love hearing that. Of course.
So Marc, I think one of the biggest things about your external journey in the world, the journey that those of us that don't know you very well would look at and go, oh, wow, this is what he did. I think one of the most striking things about your story is New World Library and the formation of New World Library, which I love that it used to be called Whatever Publishing. But would you perhaps tell us the origin story of New World Library? And for those who aren't familiar with New World Library, I'm very grateful to be one of your authors, and one of your biggest books, which I think is very in people's consciousness these days, is The Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle, Creative Visualization with Shakti Gawain, and many, many others. But I'm curious how it all started.
Well, the real story is actually fairly funny because I wandered through my 20s. I met this woman named Shakti Gawain when I was 28 and she was 26. We called ourselves workshop junkies, and we were we ended up in this big house with like 15 people. And one of the guys there, who I won't name, got this mailing list and did this big mailing and planned to do it was 4 or 5 day seminar. I don't remember which, but it culminated in New Year's Eve, and it was going to be a big New Year's Eve party. And he hired me just to support him, pass around papers and stuff. And he hired Shakti to cook for it. And 25 people ended up signing up from all over the country. People flew in. We were in Northern California. People flew in from all over, from Florida, showed up, got ready to do this 4 or 5 day thing. And the guy got weirder and weirder before the seminar. He burned the checks that came in saying we shouldn't be attached to material plane. And he got very strange. And 10 minutes before, we were in the kitchen, the three of us, and he said, I can't handle this. And he headed out the back door. And,
Wow.
and Shakti burst into tears. And I ended up saying, well, let's lead it. And I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Their checks are already burned. I mean, so we ended up leading this 4 or 5 day thing. We just threw in everything we'd ever learned in all our workshops and gurus and meditation, this and that, everything, Western magic and everything. And people liked it. And I kept, after each session, because it went on for so long, I would run up to my room and type up. This was back in typewriter days, just notes from what we had just been through. So they'd remember, I wanted them to have something concrete in their hands as they left. So when they left, then I run over to Kinko's and copy it and give them copies. And so when they left, they had like 60 pages of notes after this thing. And I literally looked up book and publish in a dictionary to say, is this a book that I've published? And turns out a book is anything with a spine, and it was stapled. So it's just 8.5. And publishing just makes public. If you print 2 copies and give one to your mother, you've technically published a book. So that was the beginning of whatever, I would just call it whatever publishing, and took it to a store, and they said, well, they took some copies on consignment, but they said, you really need a spine on it to sell in a store. Right. And they told me about Book People, this distributor, and I went to them and they said, yeah, you need a spine and a better cover, and like you need to typeset it, but then we'll sell it. And so I did that, and that's how our first book came to be. I didn't ever sit down to write a book or have any problems with, I was just throwing together my notes. And then Shakti took the same material from the same course and called it Creative Visualization, a much better title. Mine was called Reunion, Tools for Transformation. The workshop had been called Reunion. So I did Reunion. And over the years, it sold maybe like 12,000 copies. And then faded out and went out of print. But then Shakti called it Creative Visualization and just wrote it so beautifully that it just started selling like crazy by word of mouth. And that book launched our company, really.
That's amazing, because the statistics on that book now, it's in the multi-millions, isn't it?
Yes, it's something like, I'm not even sure, because the foreign, it's probably close to 10 million worldwide, something like, maybe more.
And it's about 30 languages too that it's translated.
Yes, I think 30, 35, something like that.
That's fantastic.
It's wonderful. It keeps going and going. We keep negotiating foreign rights and stays in print. It's a great book. It has changed many people's lives.
Yeah. And what I love about, I think, those, if you like, those big hit books that you can have in a company, or if you're in any company, whatever your hit thing is, it really kind of paves the way for all of the other offerings that you do that may or may not reach quite as many numbers, but are really impactful. And so it's always lovely when you have those flagship things, I think.
Yes, exactly. That's what really makes it work. My friend Phil Wood of 10 Speed Press, he was an early mentor of mine, and he said, you got to have a lead dog. And he said, never sell your lead dog. And I guess he means like, I don't know, sledding or something,
Right.
But yep, that it really makes life and publishing a lot easier if you have just even one that's selling really well.
So I know that you have a magical way of approaching your life, and one of I think, is it your most popular book, The Magical Path, or it's certainly one of them?
It's up there, yeah. It's getting there. Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. You just shared that story with us, and it's a very magical story. It's like, oh, the guy that we booked stepped out, so we stepped in. It's kind of like accidental destiny, and it sounds very magical. But I'm curious, that's quite a big step that you and Shakti took to kind of move into publishing. And did you have any hesitations or fears, or, we talked about imposter syndrome. Did you have any of that as things started to take off, or was it kind of easy for you to just make this thing happen?
Well, the first thing, it was kind of easy. I mean, we just had to do it. I never even thought about it. We just did it. But throughout, I always felt very young. I felt very young. I was 28 or 29 when we did that. And then as we did more and more workshops together, I felt there was a deep down thing of, maybe I'm too young for this. Maybe I need more experience. Am I really walking my talk? I was always adamant about only teaching something I really knew, and I'd already dealt with enough teachers that weren't walking their talk. I met plenty of them in Berkeley in the 70s. They were usually, and many of them were successfully published writers to this day. And I just knew it, like, first we get something intellectually, and for certain people that are intellectually smart and great talkers, and they think they've got something, and they end up, many of them write successful books and teach and have followers, and yet their lives are a mess. They're not walking their talk. And that was really important to me. So I definitely had this ongoing, not really, I wouldn't say a struggle. What was it? An ongoing voice that said, you teach what you know in your heart and what you live every day. So you have to live it every day to teach it effectively. So I had that kind of thing. So I wouldn't exactly call it imposter syndrome, but I would say I felt young. I felt young. Even into my 40s, I still feel very young for my age.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I'm 74 now, so I still almost feel kind of young. It's like I feel open, and I feel like I learn stuff every day, and it's been an amazing journey, definitely.
And that to me, what you just shared about 74, feeling young, like all of my older friends in their 70s and beyond, for many years, the ones I have noticed who have that youth, that spark, they're either very spiritually open, or they might not be into spirituality, but they just live in a super present way. They're alive, and they're just naturally present. So I think that presence of being here for the mystery is, from my perspective, what seems to create that for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about feeling young, because I realized one of the things that I noticed in doing this work in the world after being a student of this work for so many years, and still, of course, now, but is there's like a shift that you have to make in your brain. And for me, it was, oh, you're allowed to do this too. Because I think when you've got used to sitting in one seat, to suddenly find yourself perhaps at the front of the people with the seats, it's a little jarring to your brain if your brain had decided, no, this is where I sit, it can't go this way. And I often think that that's a real good metaphor for life, because I think life will do that to us. It will suddenly put us in a position we weren't expecting, or suddenly we're older than our parents in a certain way, not by age, but we have to look after them. And life's constantly flipping you around. So
Right.
no, I think that's just interesting. I love the origin of your story, that this is how it began for you. And yet for someone like me who hears about New World Library and you in the late 2000s, I might have a very different perception of actually what your story was. I might have put you in a certain frame that if you sat and talked to me is actually a little more relatable than I think.
Mm-hmm. I do remember when I had done my first book reunion, it looked very funky. It was hand done. It was, it wasn't a slick book at all. It was very funky. And I took it to LA to the Bodhi Tree bookstore at the time.
I love
this huge bookstore. And I remember walking out of there just in total shock because I had no idea there were thousands of titles, spiritual titles out. To this day, in many interviews, so many people say, oh, you were really on the cutting edge. You were really on the forefront. Really, creative visualization is the first spiritual title. And I said, no, it's not true. There were thousands done, for hundreds of years before that. It was one of the, maybe it was the first big national bestseller or something. But I do remember walking out of Bodhi Tree bookstore just in shock, thinking, oh my God, what right do I have? There's so many thousands of books already out there. Some are so brilliant, like Autobiography of a Yogi, I remember reading. And I remember walking around the block just in sort of a state of shock. And that's what came to mind. What right do I have to write a book when there's so many out there that are so brilliant already? And then I thought about it for about 10 minutes, maybe, walking around the block. And then what dawned on me is, well, no one will write the book I'll write.
It's true.
No one will write the book you write. No one will write the book any of your listeners would write. Yeah. It'll be absolutely unique because each one of us is absolutely unique. So write the book you're going to write. And there'll be no book exactly like it. And that just sort of allowed me then to get into writing my next book and getting into speaking, realizing no one will say what I say, just like no one says what you say.
Yeah.
We're all absolutely unique. And I really feel we're all creative geniuses in some way. We were born with some real creative gift to express. We're also all born totally clueless in certain areas, which makes life interesting. We're here to learn lots of stuff, but we're also here to teach. I think every one of us is here to teach what they know.
Absolutely. And you end up doing that for a friend or for your child or for a group of people that you're teaching a thing to. I mean, I think with the teacher-student dance for all of us is this constant revolving door, isn't it?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, Marc, when was music happening in your life too? Because I know you were quite active in music around this time that the books and the whatever publishing was happening.
Mm-hmm. Music's always been a part of my life. I had a musical family. My grandparents would sit around after dinner and pull out. My grandfather played a mandolin, and my aunt would pull out her guitar, and they'd sing. And we'd all sing. I knew how to harmonize when I was a little kid before I even knew what the word meant, I think. And then I started playing piano, and then I had a band in high school, and always had some kind of band going on through college. And in my 20s, for a while, I did have a full-out rock band that did real full-out spiritual rock and roll. That it was a pretty amazing time. It fell apart. We had great music and non-existent management.
Right. Right.
I had no idea that, you know, any successful musician you've heard of has like a manager or
Right.
is good at managing themselves. I was totally clueless about the financial end of everything, including the music business. But yeah, in my 20s, I had a rock band. And then in my 30s, I did 7 albums, 30s and 40s. And I'm still recording to this day. I just wrote a song I'm going to be recording soon.
Nice. And is music a like a daily thing for you? Do you find?
I play nearly every day, I think.
Mm.
I have a beautiful big grand piano, and I have some great synthesizers and guitars. And often, like today, I mean, I'll do email for a while, and then I'll just take a break and just go play and sing.
Mm.
Oh, I was listening to your music. Is that you singing? Do you sing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you're a beautiful singer.
Oh, thank you.
Really impressed with your singing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, it was a journey. It was a journey to let myself sing, because I had that thing of like, oh, is this good enough? You know, and then I eventually got over it and just did it for the experience. And that's always the way, isn't it? When you get out of your own way and let something happen, the good stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too. I just started singing because I wrote some music, and I was the only one that could sing it, you know, that knew the pieces. So I became like lead singer for a rock band. And then,
yeah, but I'm not surprised if you were harmonizing from a young age, because I think understanding harmonics, you already have your way into arranging and the way that music compositionally works. Because I never read music, but I was a harmonizer from a young age. So I think if you can understand the harmonic layers, then the multidimensionality of music starts to become something you're in. And so that's just my theory anyway.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's something I've hardly said, but I remember when I play a piece on a piano, especially on my 9-foot grand, because it resonates so much, I hear the harmonies. I hear other instruments in the overtones. Yeah. It's like they're there. So then in like my last album called Awakening, it's orchestral. It has like an entire orchestra behind it. And I just heard that orchestra as I was playing the piano in the overtones. It's as if the music's already there, fully formed.
It's beautiful. And Mark, where would we find that album? I want to hear that album. I haven't heard that one. So Awakening.
Yeah, Awakening's the last one. It's very orchestral. We do have a website. It's fairly lame, called Watercourse Media.
Watercourse Media. We will put a link to that in the show notes for anyone who wants to specifically check out the music.
Right. Or you can just Google. You can go to YouTube and do Marc Allen Music. Marc with a C, A-L-N music. And I think all 7 of my albums are there.
Great.
2 of them have vocals and 5 are instrumental.
So I have to ask you, given you just brought up that, you know, you didn't have management and you said I was lousy at the management side. Here you are at the head of New World Library. And of course, I know you have a great team and it takes a village, but still to be, you know, sat at the top of that company in the way that you are, what have you learned about, I guess, your strengths in management? Or kind of what has that journey revealed to you, if that wasn't something you were seemingly adept in from the beginning?
Right. I still am totally clueless about so much of business that has to do with the financial side and even the marketing side, because I'm not really interested in it, and the technical side. So really the key to my success is I delegate, and I know this is almost a cliche, but I find people smarter and more capable than I am to take it and run with it. So I often say there's just three things you need to get any business or career really going. You need your product or service, and that then usually that's what we've got because we're the entrepreneurs, we're the founders. We got the product or service, but then you also need marketing and sales, some way to monetize it to get it out there. And then you need financial controls. And that was the last piece for me to even understand. Until I found the right woman who came along and whipped me into shape. I lost money my first 4 years, I think, of the company because I had no idea of financial controls, controlling expenses. And then this wonderful woman came in and whipped me into shape, showed me how to make a profit. And so to this day, I don't understand spreadsheets the way she does. I don't understand when they start talking marketing, even they lose me, especially when it gets technical about what's going on in the web. I just have far more capable people around me running the show. And I do profit sharing with every one of them. So it completely empowers them to act like owners. And the business works beautifully.
That's great. I'm curious how the business has been for you this year, because we're recording this in 2020, even though we're recording this in November 2020, and I'm thinking it will release early next year. But I think 2020 has been such a shift year for everybody personally, collectively, but also the way work has changed for people. So I'm curious, what have you noticed has changed around the energy or the practical side of New World Library this year?
Right. At first, we had a real scare. The first 2 weeks of April, our sales just plunged as the virus hit. And we really wondered, is this the new normal to get by on a whole lot less sales? But it turned out it was a lot of it was Amazon. They stopped shipping books for 2 weeks and shipped just critical things for the virus and everything.
Yes.
And so thank God we then totally recovered last 2 weeks of April, and our sales ever since have been up over last year. So we're having a really good year. I think a lot of people they're home. They have time to read books.
Yeah.
Our kinds of books, when things get tough, people head for our books, try to make their life better. Like your book is one of them, that's for sure. It's doing well. And the power of now just keeps going and going and going.
Tell us a little bit, because I think it's, the power of now is one of the most famous personal development spiritual books of certainly the last 100 years. And what I do know about that book, I think I bought it within months of it coming out, because I remember it was a new title at the kind of new age bookstore I used to go to. And I remember reading it and then putting it down, and then every now and then hearing occasionally someone would say something, and then all of a sudden it was like, it's one of those, the Four Agreements did the same thing. I loved the Four Agreements. I bought copies for everybody, and now I constantly see it in the top 10 25 years later. What was it that you think that was there just a boom moment for that book? Or
it started pretty slow, and it was word of mouth. It broke all the rules of marketing in that when we published it, I don't even think Eckhart had a computer. He had nothing happening online. He wrote the book longhand.
Wow.
And, all he was doing were a few little events in Vancouver, Canada. And so he wasn't really promoting at all, but it just kept going word of mouth, and we kept behind it. A big breakthrough finally happened. We had it at an LA book fair, and we had it prominently on a table there, and Oprah came by, Oprah, the Holy Grail. And somebody called me and said, "Mark, you won't remember meeting me, but I'm at the LA book fair, and Oprah's walking around with the power of now in her hand." And I immediately called my marketing people, said, "Get more books in print." And We did. And so she really helped launch it then
Yeah.
in the stratosphere. She did the same thing with creative visualization. Again, that sold word of mouth and really built on its own. But then Oprah picked it up.
Yeah.
And had Shakti on for an hour. And that really launched the company into a whole other level of success.
I know that you were very, very close with Shakti, and I know several of your team were, and I know it was a great loss when she passed. How was her life after creating a book like that you two are just creating because you're creating, and all of a sudden it becomes this big thing? How did she live her life, not having met her? I was just curious.
In a way, she never changed a bit before and after. She was exactly the same person. She was always like totally working on herself and working on her friends. She had this amazing energy, 24/7. She didn't have an off switch. She was just so passionate about it. And so she was always learning, always growing, always, she would bust her friends a lot of times. I remember her own mother. She really helped her mother grow a huge amount, because she would just bust her. She would say, Mom, what you're saying, do you detect there's some real anger and resentment in there? Do you get the edge of your, she was like that with everybody. Right. She just, that was just her calling. I think she was probably that way when she was a little kid. Yeah. Because I met her when she was 26, and she did not change one bit ever. She was just this driving force. Shakti was the perfect name for her because she had this energy. Yeah. And she wouldn't let her friends get away with anything. She really wouldn't. We had a huge wake for her, and hundreds of people said the same thing, that their lives changed when they met Shakti. And many of them even said, she really confronted me with my stuff. She didn't let me get away with any kind of denial or anything. She was amazing. She was absolutely unique, that's for sure.
I love that, because we never know the impact that we might be having on other people, but I also often stop and regularly take in the people in my life that are here right now, and just I'm grateful for the fact they're here right now. I'm here right now. I don't take it for granted that we all will be. And I try now at this age, I didn't used to have this awareness. I try and just be grateful for the huge impact that their energy is playing on every part of my life and my psyche and my growth. And because it's amazing when you lose people, and when they're gone all of a sudden, you notice the gap. So I think that taught me over the years to notice what's there, to not wait until the gap is there, but to notice what's there now.
Yes.
Yeah, hearing you say that, I totally, makes me wish I'd got to meet her, and I totally understand why everyone's saying that.
Yeah, she was amazing.
So I'm curious, I love the title of The Magical Path, which is one of your big books. And also I know you have a course called On the Magical Path, which is something that you offer as an ongoing course for people who visit your site and follow your teachings. Tell us a little bit about the magical path and being on the magical path. Like, what are some of the principles that might be interesting for us to hear about?
Yes. Yeah, we started, when I wrote the book, I did a year on the magical path, where every month I just had the outline for the book, and it had 12 chapters. I just tried to cover everything. At first, I thought it would be quite a short book, because I was only going to do the things I did in my life. And at the age of 21, I found this book, The Art of True Healing by Israel Regardie, and he had this middle pillar meditation. And I started doing this middle pillar meditation, and then it healed me. It healed me, this one simple meditation. So I have that it's a very short book. I have the entire book excerpted in chapter 4 of The Magical Path. And then I look back, I said, okay, everything I did, I didn't do any research for the book whatsoever. I just looked back to say, okay, when I was 21, I found that book. So I had that in there. Then later on, I found a book, As You Think, or originally it was called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And I realized that gave me some incredible tools that really lightened my life. And then I did certain things the day I turned 30 that I have talked about in some other books, like my book, The Millionaire Course, too, and another one called The Greatest Secret of All. I talk about the simple things I did the day I turned 30, where I literally sat down and just wrote my ideal scene on a sheet of paper, imagining 5 years had passed, everything had gone as well as I could imagine. What would my life look like? That little exercise completely changed my life. So that's in there too. And just everything I did. And the book kept growing and growing. With all these different things, I kept waking up at 3 a.m. many times saying, oh yeah, I also did that years ago. I wonder if that had any effect. Oh, I also prayed to the goddess Iemanjá, this wonderful Brazilian goddess that my Brazilian wife turned me on to. And so I had to put that in there. And I just threw in everything. And I said, this is like a buffet. It's like a huge buffet. It grew and grew and grew and grew. And I realized I'd done a lot of things over 40 years. So I think it's way too much to try to do the whole thing. Just go through and pick what works for you and try it. Just try it with an open mind. I often say there's nothing to believe in any of this. I never had to come to believe anything. I never had to make a leap of faith or anything. I just tried these things with an open mind. I wrote my ideal scene. I did this middle pillar meditation. The first time I did it, I remember getting up out of my chair. I felt 20 pounds lighter. I felt healed. I was in horrible health when I was 21. I took way too much crystal methadone in college. So stupid, with no awareness, oh, this is having a bad effect in my health. And it really was. But then I found that book, The Art of True Healing. And I remember the first meditation I did, just out of the book, you just run energy through your body. You imagine it healing, healing, healing. Every part of your body, you can focus on what's hurting. And it was my heart. I had really stressed my heart. My heart was beating. I couldn't walk up a flight of steps without stopping and pausing because my heart was racing. I'm sure I really damaged it. And then I did that one meditation from The Art of True Healing. And I remember getting up. My heart felt healed. And I literally felt like 20 pounds lighter. I feel to this day, those meditations have kept me in perfect health. I almost never, I've had maybe 2 colds in the last 40 years or something. I mean, I've just been in amazing health. And I know, I really think so. Who knows really, but that doing that meditation has been key.
Yeah. I love when you were sharing with us about, creating the book and, you're like, oh, and then I remembered this other thing. It's a big reminder about holding space for creation to happen. Because I hear this a lot with people who write biographies. The interview of someone who's written their biography, they say, wow, I'd never really stopped and looked back. And suddenly when you piece it all together, but I think equally, I know as a creator, you have to say yes to create something for the energy to start to come in. And I was just sharing this with a friend the other day who's going, oh, I want to create something, but she's trying to think it all in advance. And I was like, it doesn't work like that. You can't get it right before you produce it. You have to say, yes, I will produce this. And you walk in and you might just know the first thing you're going to do. But then once you're in the magical energy of creation, more will come. And so I hear that with you getting these nuggets. I have that with albums I work on. All of a sudden, a song from 9 years ago won't leave my head. And I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be on the album,
Yes. Yeah, I get a lot of ideas in a hot tub. I take a lot of hot tubs, and in my book, Visionary Business, a whole lot of it was written me standing naked, dripping wet, because I would sit in my hot tub and I'd suddenly hear, that was through the voice of my mentor, Bernie. And I'd hear Bernie start talking to me, you should write about this. And I'm in the hot tub, but I knew you got to grab it as soon as it comes. Same with a song. If you don't
Totally.
grab it, it's gone. It's
Totally.
gone. So I literally would just run into my room and write as fast as I could, naked, dripping wet, the ink getting all smeared. But that I wrote big chunks of my book that way.
That's fantastic. You could probably have sold the photo of you naked, dripping wet as the limited edition hardcover. if you'd really thought about it from a marketing standpoint, that could have done well.
X-rated version.
No, that's great, and it's true. You get those lightning in a bottle moments. That with a song, it's like I have to grab the voice recorder on the phone because it will go.
Yes.
I think creativity. And it's speaking to you, who is a lifelong creative, and that's been my path. I think it's much more of an active muscle than I think people who want to create but haven't created realize. You don't actually know fully what you're doing. You just have to be foolish and brave enough to walk in, and then you figure it out. It's kind of like, you say yes, and then you figure it out, and you let it come through you, whatever way it needs to.
Yes. I once asked Eckhart why he thought The Power of Now was so popular, and he said an amazing thing for all of us creatives. He said all he knows is that he waited until every sentence arose from presence. Every sentence. He just waited. And then he even said he started writing it out here in Sausalito in Marin County, California, just north of San Francisco. He showed me he had this little room with a beautiful view of the bay. And then he went back to England, and he said he tried over and over and over to write in England, and he couldn't write. He wasn't finding it. Yeah. So then he came back to the West Coast, ended up in Vancouver, Canada, and he was able to finish his book. So he said for him, there's something about America that makes it easier for him to get into presence.
Yeah, there is a different frequency for sure. The frequencies of England and Sausalito are very different. And it's funny because I was writing Energy Speaks with Deborah Evans just down the road in Marin. So it's funny. But of course you guys are in the Bay Area too, so that's why. I'm just curious, actually, as we talk about this, I have this memory of one of my favorite things I ever heard Eckhart say, and I haven't seen a lot of interviews with him, but this one I had, and it stuck out. He told a story about how he was running a workshop, and he put on this one-day event and nobody came. So he thought, oh, then it must just be for me. So he stayed there all day by himself and meditated. And I thought, and it was great for me because, it was about 2007. I heard that story and I was like, oh, I think I would have probably tried to see if I could cancel the room. But I'm like, now I've heard him say that if ever I have a no-show, I'll just try and do what he did. That's cool.
Oh, that's good. Oh, he's so wonderful. When he was like virtually homeless for a while. He slept in his car, and he said it was totally fine for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That awakening story, because he talked, I heard him speak about the homelessness in conjunction to having awakened.
Yes.
And I think that's so interesting that with awakening, we tend to gain so much in awakening that it's very common that people lose everything, or the life they're in kind of falls apart. I had that story. So many people I know had that story, and he for sure had quite the awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's one reason I love him so much. His success really does not matter to him in the least. It really doesn't. He was quite happy and peaceful, having nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And you just really sense every word he writes comes from his experience. And he does say, even if everything collapses and crumbles around you, you can be at peace. Yeah. And that's, I have an audio of him I listen to a lot. And he does say, he rarely talks about success or prosperity. He's not interested in it. I am. He really isn't. But he mentioned one time, he said, you know, if you are present more, it can really help you in career. It can really help you be more successful. And he says, not that it matters. And then he goes on.
Yeah.
It really does matter to him. He just goes to the essence of being, and your outer circumstances. He's not. You know, it isn't the outer circumstances themselves, he often says, but it's how you react to them that count.
Mark, it's interesting, you know, that we're talking about this idea of success, because I think, you know, I, as a young person, saw success as freedom, you know, especially when I, you know, first wanted to do albums, and then that meant I had to get into the record industry, and, you know, all the things that my brain, my conditioning had taught me. And I think the truth about success is, and why so many people fall down when they get the outer success or get what they call success depression, is that you can manifest the outer world that you think is actually going to bring you a different feeling. And then when it doesn't, or now your feelings have to catch up, now you have to heal because you kind of got that thing that you thought was going to do X, Y, or Z and it didn't, then I kind of feel like you have the opportunity to have aligned success, which might look like a very big outer life, but it might not. But whatever it is, you'll feel connected to your sense of purpose, whatever outer form that takes. You know, that feeling of connection to others, to why you're here, to what you're doing. Be great if they taught us that when we were kids.
Yes, it sure would. It sure would. I mean, it's really a radical idea for so many people just to realize that all the things we think we need to be happy, that we get education in order to get college, in order to get that good job and get the career to really then be happy or fulfilled. And we realize the outer circumstances have nothing to do with it whatsoever. And it took me years to really learn that. When I did my ideal scene the day I turned 30, I did imagine in 5 years a publishing company and a big, beautiful house on a hill. And I remember thinking, if I had a big, beautiful house on a hill, then I'd just have it made. I'd have it made. Well, eventually I got the big, beautiful house on the hill. And I remember walking around thinking, oops, the house has nothing to do with it. In fact, a big house, it presents a whole lot of problems, in fact. It's an inside job. So thank God the power of now came along, and like the way Eckhart says, get the inside right and the outside will fall into place. It's all an inside job, not dependent on our outer circumstances or level of success at all.
Yeah. Which is why, you know, one of the things that I learned through my guides, the Z's, years and years ago, that I will now bring in when I'm, you know, teaching a group or an online class, is to really know why you're trying to manifest that thing emotionally, because you can save yourself having to do it. You know, if you get underneath why you want the fast car, right, and you look at what it's going to do to your ego and to your sense of healing and your sense of worth, and you tick all those boxes, you might then go, oh, now I kind of don't need it. Or you might go, oh, now I've got all those wounds out the way, I'm just a speed junkie and I like fast cars, and I don't have to go through any of the ego stuff about it. I can just purely have the experience. So I think when manifesting or intending for things, to do it with real awareness as to what's my why here, because then you can save yourself a whole lot of time and effort.
Yes, you really can save yourself maybe a lifetime's worth of effort. You know, the whole thing of working 35 years at a job you don't like, so you retire, is just, it's sad to me. It's totally unnecessary. What do you want to do when you retire? Find a way to make that work now. Yeah, you can do that. You can do it. in my 30s, I remember somebody saying, well, Mark, you're semi-retired, you know, because of when he understood my work week. And And I said, no, I'll never retire. I just do what I love. I just found a way to only do what I love and make it work. And simplifies your life. And yes, I found I didn't need the big house. I downsized.
Yeah.
The house is huge. It was 10,000 square feet.
Oh, wow.
And I said, why did I get this? And I said, I guess I had to prove to myself that these things actually do work.
Yeah.
You know, I created it magically from having no money, no family support, no job. I ended up with a 10,000 square foot house on a hill with a huge yard and tremendous views. And it was an estate, you know.
Yeah.
And then I said, why do I need this? Was this supposed to make me happy? Oh, well, being happy has nothing to do with the size of your house. Duh. Took me a while to get that one.
Yeah, but isn't that the great thing about life too? It's like, you know, we're always learning lessons, sometimes through, I can think of countless things that I thought I needed or wanted. And luckily they weren't, you know, horrific things that when I got them, they were a big problem when I realized I had to kind of undo them. And yeah, but it's also interesting how those outer circumstances change us and inform who we then become too. I kind of like that way round as well. It's noticing how the things that happen unto you or that you bring to yourself or the people you meet, how they then shape what you do next.
Yes, it's true.
So speaking of what you do next, Marc, and it has been so lovely to talk to you today. So this has been great. Thank you for coming on. What are you looking forward to? Let's play your own game. So we're going to play your own game from the age of 30, now at the age of 74. Tell us about your next 5 years.
I played the game this morning.
Oh,
I walked outside of my house and I said, okay, 5 years down the road. And so I've been doing that ever since I was 30, and I have reached a point where more of the same is just wonderful. I would love to have a greater impact in the world. I am working on 2 different books simultaneously that'll both be courses, and that, who knows, may have more of an impact in the world than I've had. We shall see. But I, of course, am just, I'm completely happy and satisfied with my life. Every day I do what I love. I follow my energy every moment. This was my dream at 30. I said, I want to wake up and throughout the whole day, just do what I like. And so that was my experiment. I remember my doubts and fears vehemently said, impossible, Marc, to start a company. You got to get up early. And even my ex-wife mirrored my doubts and fears. She used to say, Marc, if you'd get up just a little earlier, because I usually sleep about 11. I love musicians' hours.
Are you a night owl? Are you like awake?
I'm a night owl, yes. I'll often stay up till 2 or so.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I always have been, even as a little kid. And I was a musician, you know, in my 20s, and I love those hours. You never did anything till 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, those were perfect for my biorhythms. And that's my ideal, to just keep following my energy, like literally my physical energy. I just I stop thinking and I just tune into, what do I want to do? Do I want to play the piano? Do I want to maybe write a song? Is there a song? Do I want to, whatever. Oh, okay, take care of business, get into my, 200 emails I get every day, and whatever. I do it. I literally will just follow my energy, and I'll sit down, I'll do some emails, then I'll get up and play the piano or go for a walk or whatever. But that's my ideal, and I'm living it, and it's been very good for me and for my health. I know it's great for my health. No stress. I do. I sometimes 2 times in the afternoon I'll lay down and nap or meditate or whatever. Occasionally even 3 times through the day. I'll just. I get up at 11. Sometimes there have been times when I get up at 11 and have my strong coffee and go back to bed. just occasionally. Occasionally, my get up and go has gotten up and gone. And sometimes even after my strong coffee, I still don't have the energy. So okay, I'll go back to bed. Another like 45 minutes out, then I have some energy. And then I might 3 hours later lay down again. And so I sort of nap or meditate. Half the time I meditate, half the time I nap. But I always do it flat on my back in my favorite yoga posture, the corpse position. I just did it, for about 15 minutes before this talk. I just laid down. Okay. Feel better now.
Well, I hope that anybody watching and listening who just delighted in your description of flowing from thing to thing, I hope that you realize, dear viewer or listener, that this is possible, and Marc is the living example. And I think it's interesting too, because as I listen to you, I get the little aha moments for myself. And it's funny, Devor and I, who I collaborate with on music and the sound production for our company. And in fact, Devor did the audiobook for Energy Speaks with me. We've both just been working a lot recently. And I think my team, the core team that I work with, would say the same, because we don't have a schedule. Everyone does their own hours. But in the last year or two, really noticing how to master that flow of, oh, I'm really tired this morning, I haven't got it. Okay, great. Then give yourself to not having it. And miraculously, 3 or 4 hours later, you find yourself, oh, now I'm going to go back there. Rather than like the old ways of like, oh God, I've got to get this done and hold myself at the desk, which I definitely lived in my 20s and parts of my 30s for sure. So that flowing through the magical path of your way, Marc, is the way, and I think the way of the future.
Yes, and it's so obvious. It's so good for your health to relax when you need. I relax a lot, but then I get a lot of energy. Here I'm 74. I'm running up the stairs. I'm running sometimes. At the office, for instance, I'll come down the stairs really fast because I feel all this energy because I've relaxed so much the day before or that morning or whatever, and it's great. It's that's why I keep feeling very young for my age, because I'll run around sometimes. I was caught out in the rain, I remember last winter, with a very young friend in San Francisco, and we ran for like half a mile back to the parking lot from under the Golden Gate Bridge. And I thought, and tearing up these stairs, and I felt so good. And I said, God, okay. I was 73 years old. I can keep up with a 25-year-old running through the rain and laughing, and it's wonderful. So I really think if you can follow your energy, it is the key to like eternal youth. Yeah. It's the key to really finding that energy, to really admit when it's not there. Don't push it. That's what gets bad for your health. Don't push it. Don't stress. Don't have some coffee to stay awake. I love my coffee, but I'll sometimes have my coffee and then go relax for an hour.
Yeah. Beautiful. Marc, thank you so much for being with us. It has been lovely to get to share in a bit more of your journey. And for anybody who wants to learn more about Marc, his work, his teachings, you can follow the show links that we're going to put in the show notes. And Marc, the website for your specific work, not New World Library, is marcallen.com.
Yes, MarcAllen.com. Yes.
And then newworldlibrary.com is where you can find a whole host of amazing authors and audiobooks, including my own Energy Speaks. I'm very proud to be with you guys and very grateful to you all for having me there.
I'm very proud to have published it. Very glad to have published it. It's a beautiful book. It's one of those books I knew the minute I saw it. I knew within 2 minutes of reading the beginning of your story. I said, okay, this book, we must do this book. That's rare that it happens that fast. But you've written a Wonderful, powerful book.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. And Mark, it was a pleasure. And we'll see you all next week for next week's show. Big love, everyone. We have just finished Rebirth 2021, my annual flagship program, and this year was bigger than ever. We actually decided to offer all of the teaching live this year, but as ever, replays are available. So usually we close booking at the end of January, but this year, given the potency and the power of the event, and also because we're aware many of you are looking to up-level the way that you create your life, the things that you're creating, we've decided to leave registration open for a little longer. I dubbed Rebirth this year the Metaphysical Creators Summit because the themes were really all focused on how to bring into being what it is you might like next, and as well as modules that I teach, including channeling from my guides, the Z's, I brought my whole team with me. So there are support materials in the form of videos or meditations from several of my team members, Marty, Wendy. Stephen Washington also brings his wonderful Qigong, and it's Qigong that's designed for complete beginners. In fact, most of the practice was done from a chair, so anyone can join in. But it was a wonderful grounding class that helps you activate your creative body, your creator's frequency. So, as well as all of the supplemental worksheets, questions and writing prompts that I've offered for each class so that you can really take a deep dive, we kick the whole thing off with a sound healing channeled recording and original song from myself and Devor Bozique, which is available as soon as you start, as is all the material. So please enjoy Rebirth 2021. You can find it at rebirth2021.com or at my website, Lee Harris Energy. Just follow the links below the video and we hope you enjoy. Going back to our original life force, we're saying, hey, life force, you remember like what I came here with? You remember when I was like full, but I was much smaller in body? I want to start bringing that back through. So life force goes, oh, okay, great. Well, good. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll need you to just clear this when you were 6. Yeah, we just need to look at this because that's where things got really jammed up. And I was trying to send you quite a lot of life force then, but oh no. What we are saying is there is something in the high frequency of the subject, the gathering of this group, and why you have all come together for this rebirth experience at this time, this year. You have come to experience permission, trust, and higher learning around how to be more high frequency more of the time. You don't have to go off to a workshop and heal yourself so that you can become a creator. Become a creator and you will heal yourself.